Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. I am Azzhara Nabila. I'm from 4BB class, and today I want to tell you about categoric variable. So, let's go to the topic. So, what is categoric variable? In statistics, a categorical variable is a variable that can take on one of a limited and usually fixed number of possible values assigned each individual or other unit of observation to a particular group or nominal category on the basis of some qualitative property. In computer science and some branches of mathematics, categorical variables are referred to as enumerations or enumerated types. Commonly, throughout in this article, each of the possible values of a categorical variable is referred to as a level. The probability distribution associated with a random categorical variable is called a categorical distribution. Categorical data is the statistical data type consisting of categorical variables or of data that has been converted into that form. For example, as group data. More specifically, categorical data tabulation. Categorical data may derive from observations made of qualitative data that are summarized as counts or cross tabulation, or from observation of quantitative data group within given intervals. Often purely categorical data are summarized in the form of a contingency table. However, particularly when considering data analysis, it's common to use the term categorical data to apply to data sets that, while containing some categorical variables, may also contain non-categorical variables. A categorical variable that can take on exactly two values in terms a binary variable or a dichotomous variable. An important special case is the Bernoulli variable. Categorical variables is more than two possible values are called polytomous variables. Categorical variables are often assumed to be polytomous unless otherwise specified. Discretization is treating continuous data as if it were categorical. Dichotomization is treating continuous data or polytomous variables as if they were binary variables. Regression analysis often treats category membership with one or more quantitative dummy variables. Okay, next is examples of values that might be represented in a categorical variable. There are first blood type, the blood type of a person. The example is AB or O. And the second is political party. The political party that a voter might vote for: Christian Democrat, Social Democrat, Green Party, etc. Next, type of rock. The example is igneous, sedimentary, or metamorphic. And the last is the identify of particular word. The identify of a particular word, one of the possible choices for a vocabulary of size V. Okay, the next is categorical variables and regression. There are dummy coding, effect coding, contrast coding, no-sense coding, embeddings, and interactions. Okay, let me explain about the categorical variables and regression. First is dummy coding. Dummy coding is used when there is a control or comparison group in mind. Therefore, analyzing the data of one group in relation to the comparison group represents the mean of the control group, and B is the difference between the mean of experimental group and the mean of the control group. It suggested that three criteria be met for specifying a suitable control group. The group should be a well-established group, should not be an other category, There should be a logical reason for selecting this group as a comparison. The group is anticipated to score highest on the dependent variable, and finally the group's sample size should be substantive and not small compared to the other groups. Next, second is FX coding. In the FX coding system, data are analyzed through comparing one group to all other groups. Unlike dummy coding, there is no control group, rather comparison is being made at the mean of all groups combined. A is now the grand mean. Therefore, one is not looking for data in relation to another group, but rather one is seeking data in relation to the grand mean. FX coding can either be weighted or unweighted. Weighted FX coding is simply calculating weighted grand mean, thus taking into account the sample size in each variable. This is most appropriate in situations where the sampler is representative of the population in question. Unweighted FX coding is most appropriate in situations where differences in sample size are the result of incidental factors. The interpretation of B is different for each. In unweighted FX coding, B is the differences between the mean of the experimental group and the grand mean, whereas in the weighted situation, it's the mean of the experimental group minus the weighted grand mean. Next, third is contrast coding. The contrast coding system allows a researcher to directly ask specific questions rather than having the coding system dictate the comparison being made against a control group as in dummy coding or against all groups as in FX coding. One can design a unique comparison catering to one specific research question. This tailored hypothesis is generally based on previous theory and or research. The hypotheses proposed are generally as follows. First, there's the central hypothesis, which postulates a large difference between two sets of groups. The second hypothesis suggests that within each set, the differences among the groups are small. Through its a priori focus hypothesis, contrast coding may yield on an increase in power of the statistical test when compared with the less directed previous coding system. Next is nonsense coding. Nonsense coding occurs when one uses arbitrary values in place of the designated zeros, ones, and minus ones seen in the previous coding system. Although it produces correct mean values for the variables, the use of nonsense coding is not recommended as it will lead to uninterpretable statistical results. Okay, next, there's embeddings. Embeddings are coding of categorical values into high-dimensional real valued, sometimes complex valued vector spaces, usually in such a way that similar values are assigned similar vectors or with respect to some other kind of criterion, making the vectors useful for the respective application. A common special case are word embeddings, where the possible values of the categorical variable are the words in a language, and words with similar meanings are to be assigned similar vectors. Okay, the last is interactions. An interaction may arise when considering the relationship among three or more variables and describe a situation in which the simultaneous influence of two variables on a third is not additive. Interactions may arise with categorical variables in two ways, either categorical by categorical variable interactions or categorical by continuous variable interactions. Okay, let me explain about categorical by categorical variable interactions. This type of interaction arises when we have two categorical variables. In order to this type of interaction, one would code using the system that addresses the researcher's hypothesis most appropriately. The product of the code yields the interaction. One may then calculate the b-value and determine whether the interaction is significant. Okay, next, categorical by continuous variable interaction. Simple slopes analysis is a common post hoc test used in regression, which is similar to the simple effects analysis in ANOVA. Used to analyze interaction, in this test, we are examining the sample slopes of one independent variable at specific values of the other independent variable. Such a test is not limited to use with continuous variables, but may also be employed when the independent variable is categorical. We cannot simply choose values to probe the interaction as we would in the continuous variable case because the nominal nature of the data. In the continuous case, one could analyze the data at high, moderate, and low level, assigning one standard deviation above the mean, at the mean, and at one standard deviation below the mean respectively. In our categorical case, we would use a simple regression equation for each group to investigate the simple slopes. It's common practice to standardize or center variables to make the data more interpretable in simple slopes analysis. However, the categorical variables should never be standardized or centered. This test can be used with all coding systems. Okay, I think that's all from my presentation. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video. Goodbye. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.